The crystalline walls of the council chamber reflected the light of 1,000 stars. Ambassador Deho Park sat in the human delegation seat, his hands folded on the table before him. He had occupied this chair for 32 years. In all that time, he had learned to recognize the patterns of dismissal, the subtle ways the other species showed their contempt for humanity. Today would be different. Today, something would break. The High Chancellor, an ancient artificial intelligence that called itself Morpheus 7, announced the vote results with mechanical precision. The Outer Rim territories discovered by human explorers and developed by human labor over 40 years would be redistributed to other council members. Humanity would receive no compensation. The vote was unanimous, excluding the human delegation. Captain Minji Kang stood beside Ambassador Park. Her military uniform was crisp and clean. She did not move as the announcement echoed through the chamber. Her face showed nothing. Councillor Vextral, a towering reptilian creature with scales that shimmered green and gold, leaned back in his seat. His lipless mouth curved into what his species considered a smile. He had led the movement to strip humanity of these rights. For months he had argued that humans were too young, too primitive, too emotional to manage such valuable territory. The matter is settled, Morpheus 7 declared. Humanity will vacate the Outer Rim territories within 6 standard months. All infrastructure will be transferred to council authority. Ambassador Park rose slowly. The chamber fell quiet. Every species present knew the humans would protest. They expected anger, threats, perhaps even tears. Humans were emotional creatures after all. Everyone knew this. Honored Chancellor, Park said, his voice steady and calm. May I address the council? Morpheus 7's holographic form flickered. You may speak, Ambassador. Park looked around the chamber. He saw the Velkari delegates with their 4 eyes watching him with barely concealed amusement. He saw the insectoid Chiracs clicking their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their kind. He saw dozens of other species, all certain of their superiority. We came to this council 127 years ago, Park began. We came with hope. We came believing that the galaxy was a place where different peoples could work together, learn from each other, and build something greater than any single species could achieve alone. Vextral made a dismissive gesture. Spare us the sentimental. I am not finished. Park's voice did not rise, but something in his tone made Vextral stop speaking. For 127 years we have contributed to this council. We have shared our technology. We have sent our doctors to your worlds when plague struck. We have sent our engineers to repair your stations when they failed. We have sent our soldiers to defend your borders when enemies threatened. And you were compensated fairly for all of it. Another counselor interjected. Park continued as if no one had spoken. We asked only for fair treatment. For respect. For the basic recognition that we are equals in this galaxy. He paused. We were wrong to expect these things. A murmur ran through the chamber. This was not the protest they had anticipated. We have endured insults. We have watched our proposals dismissed without consideration. We have seen our scientists' discoveries credited to others. We have accepted all of this because we believed, perhaps foolishly, that eventually you would see us as we are. Park's eyes were calm, but there was something in them that made several counselors shift uncomfortably in their seats. Today, you have taken the Outer Rim. Tomorrow you will take something else. You will always find a reason why humanity does not deserve what it has earned. You will always find a justification for treating us as lesser beings. He took a breath. We will not wait for tomorrow. Confusion rippled across the chamber. Vextral leaned forward. What are you saying, human? I am saying that we are done. Park's words fell into the silence like stones into still water. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Translators struggled to keep up with the chaos. Through it all, the human delegation remained seated, silent, watching. Morpheus 7's voice cut through the noise. Order! Order in this chamber! The AI's hologram expanded, filling the space above the central table. Ambassador Park, you cannot simply withdraw. There are treaties, agreements, obligations, which you have violated, Captain Kang spoke for the first time. Her voice was quieter than Park's, but it carried. Review your own records, Chancellor. Count how many times the Council has failed to uphold its obligations to humanity. Count how many times you have sided against us despite your own laws supporting our position. She stood, and the rest of the human delegation rose with her. 23 humans, men and women who had served the council faithfully, stood in unison. "We will honor our existing obligations," Kang continued. "We will complete any emergency operations currently underway. We will ensure no lives are lost due to our departure. But we will initiate no new projects. We will sign no new agreements. We will send no more of our people to serve yours." Vextral's scales flushed a deep red, a sign of anger in his species. "You need us. Your economy depends on council trade routes. Your colonies rely on council protection. You are nothing without us." Captain Kang looked at him for a long moment. Then very quietly she said, "I suppose we will find out." The human delegation began walking toward the chamber exit. Ambassador Park was the last to leave. He stopped at the doorway and turned back one final time. "We built the water purification systems on Velkar Prime," he said softly. "We designed the agricultural domes on Kurak 7. We created the navigation algorithms your ships use to travel safely through the void. We did these things not for gratitude, but because we believed they were right." He paused. "You never asked what else we do. You never wondered why your systems work so smoothly. You assumed it was your own competence." "Good luck," Park said and walked out. The chamber doors closed behind the humans with a soft sound that seemed too quiet for such a moment. For several seconds no one spoke. Then Vextral laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Let them go," he said. "They will come crawling back within a month. Humans cannot survive without the council." Several other counselors laughed with him, but some did not. Some sat in silence thinking about Park's final words, wondering what he had meant. High Chancellor Morpheus 7 did not laugh. The AI began running calculations, analyzing dependencies, reviewing systems. Something was wrong. Something in the data suggested that the humans' departure would cause ripples the council had not anticipated, but the Chancellor said nothing. Perhaps the calculations were incorrect. Perhaps Vextral was right. Perhaps outside the chamber the human delegation walked through the corridor in silence. No one spoke until they reached their ship. As the doors closed behind them and the vessel began its departure sequence, Captain Kang finally allowed herself a small smile. 3 months, she said quietly to Ambassador Park. "I give them 3 months before they understand." Park shook his head. 6. They are very good at not seeing what they do not wish to see. The ship lifted away from the council station and turned toward human space. Behind them, the crystalline structure glittered in the starlight, beautiful and oblivious. The silence had begun. Dr. Hyan Lee looked around the laboratory one last time. She had worked in this facility on Kepler Station for 8 years. The equipment here was good, better than what most council species had access to. She had made important discoveries in this room. She had saved lives with the work done here. Now she was packing her research into sealed containers. Everything she had created, every technique she had developed, every formula she had perfected, it was all going with her, Dr. Lee. The voice belonged to Krath, one of her Velkari assistants. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "I do not understand. Why must you leave?" The council vote was about territory, not about research. Hyun continued packing without looking up. "The council made their choice, Krath, now we make ours. But your work here is vital. The cure for spiral sickness, you were so close to completing it." I am. "I will continue the research in human space." She sealed another container. "You are welcome to come with me." "I would be happy to continue working with you." Krath's scales rippled with distress. "I cannot leave. My family is here. My life is here." "I understand." Hyun finally looked at him. Her expression was kind but firm. "Then I wish you well, Krath, truly. But who will continue the research here? Who will operate the equipment?" Hyun gestured at the laboratory. "Everything is documented. Any competent researcher can follow the procedures." She picked up her final container. "Goodbye, Krath." She walked out, leaving Krath standing alone among machines he had watched her operate but had never learned to use himself. He had never needed to. Dr. Lee had always been there. The same scene played out across council space. On merchant vessels, human traders closed their accounts and redirected their routes to human colonies. On agricultural worlds, human farmers deactivated their automated systems and packed their equipment. On construction sites, human engineers downloaded their specifications and departed without ceremony. There were no protests, no angry speeches, no demands for apology. The humans simply filed their departure notices and left. Admiral Jinwoo Choi stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's largest warship. Before him, holographic displays showed the positions of every human vessel in Council space. There were thousands of them: military ships, merchant vessels, research craft, colony transports. All were moving. "Status report," he said quietly. His second officer, Commander Bora, checked her console. 87% of human vessels have begun return journeys to human space. The remaining 13% are completing emergency operations or transport of civilians. All will be clear of Council territory within 3 weeks. Jinwoo nodded. And our defensive positions? All human systems are now secured. Automated defense platforms are active. Patrol routes are established. Bora paused. "Admiral, we are receiving multiple requests from Council Military Command. They want to know why we are withdrawing our joint patrol units. Reply that we are reorganizing our forces. No further explanation." "Sir, they are also asking about the defense grid around Station Meridian. Apparently it stopped functioning properly yesterday." Jinwoo allowed himself a small smile. "Did it? That is unfortunate." Bora understood. The defense grid had been designed by human engineers, maintained by human technicians. The Council's own people had never learned how it worked. They had never needed to. The humans had always been there to handle it. Now they were not. On the frontier world of New Busan, Governor Yuna Han addressed a crowd of human colonists. Behind her, transport ships waited to carry away those who wished to leave. "I know many of you have lived here for decades," she said. "You have homes here, businesses, friends among the other species. I am not ordering anyone to leave. This is your choice." An older man in the crowd raised his hand. "Governor, what about those of us who want to stay? Can we?" Yuna nodded. "You can stay if you wish. But understand this. The Council has made clear that they do not value human contributions. If you stay, you will have no protection from the human government. You will be subject to Council law, which has repeatedly been applied unfairly to our people." A woman called out, "What about our medical clinic? I am a doctor here. My patients need me." "That is your decision," Yuna said gently. "But the medical equipment, the supplies, the techniques you use, those are human developments. If you stay, you may share them. But remember that the Council took our territory without compensation. They will take your knowledge the same way if you allow it." The doctor was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded and walked toward the transport ships. Over the next month, 70% of New Busan's human population departed. The remaining 30% soon found life difficult. Without human administrators, supply chains broke down. Without human mediators, disputes between different species turned violent. Within 3 months, most of the remaining humans had left as well. In the Council chambers, Councillor Vexitral reviewed reports with growing irritation. The humans were actually leaving, all of them. He had been certain it was a bluff. "This is unacceptable," he declared to the assembled Council. "The humans are taking critical personnel with them. Medical staff, engineers, technicians. They are deliberately sabotaging Council operations." High Chancellor Morpheus VII's hologram flickered. "The humans are within their rights to recall their citizens. We cannot compel them to remain." "But look, at these reports." Vexitral gestured at the displays surrounding them. "Agricultural output on 7 worlds has dropped by 40%. 3 hospitals have had to close entire wings. The transportation network is experiencing unprecedented delays." A Chirax councillor clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. "Perhaps we relied too heavily on human labor." "Nonsense!" Vexitral's scales flushed red. "We are perfectly capable of managing our own affairs. There is simply a temporary adjustment period. Once we reorganize, everything will return to normal." But everything did not return to normal. On Velkar Prime, the water purification system that Ambassador Park had mentioned began experiencing fluctuations. Council engineers studied the system but could not understand its design. It was far more sophisticated than anything they could build. Whoever had created it had been a genius. On Chirac 7, the agricultural dome started showing irregular temperature patterns. The plants inside began to wither. Desperate administrators called for help, but the human agricultural specialists were gone. They tried to contact them in human space but received no reply. On Station Gamma, a young human technician named Jiwan Song was the last of her kind remaining. She had volunteered to stay for an extra month to help with the transition. Now, as she prepared to leave, she uploaded a file to the station's central database. The file was titled, Systems Maintained by Human Personnel, Complete Documentation. Station Commander Zeth, a Velkari officer, reviewed the file after Jiwan had departed. His eyes grew wider as he scrolled through page after page. Power distribution systems, life support redundancies, navigation algorithms, communication protocols, waste recycling processes, emergency backup procedures, hundreds of systems, thousands of small adjustments and repairs, all maintained quietly by human staff who had never asked for recognition. Zeth suddenly understood. The humans had not been passive members of the council. They had been the glue holding much of it together. And now they were gone. He tried to call Jiwan, but her ship had already entered faster than light travel. He tried to contact human administration, but received an automated message. Humanity is not currently accepting communications from council space. Thank you for your understanding. Across the galaxy, similar realizations were beginning to dawn. The humans were not coming back. They were not negotiating. They had simply withdrawn, taking with them skills and knowledge the council had never appreciated. Admiral Jinwoo Choi watched from his command ship as the last human vessel crossed into human space. Behind them, council territory was already beginning to fracture. Already beginning to fail. Secure our borders, he ordered. No one enters human space without authorization. No exceptions. As the defensive perimeter activated, cutting humanity off from the rest of the galaxy, Jinwoo thought about Ambassador Park's final words to the council. They never asked what else we do. They never wondered why things worked. Now they would learn. Now they would answer for their choices. The exodus was complete. The silence deepened. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal, the first major crisis hit. The agricultural world of Telman 4 sent out an emergency distress call. Their crops were dying. Within weeks, they would face famine. The council sent agricultural experts from 3 different species. They studied the soil, analyzed the climate control systems, reviewed the planting schedules. Everything looked correct according to standard procedures. Yet the plants continued to die. A Velkari specialist named Korvan examined the records more carefully. He found notes from a human agronomist who had worked on Telman 4 5 years earlier. The notes described a soil treatment process that was not in any standard manual. The human had identified a mineral deficiency unique to this world and developed a custom solution. The treatment had been applied every 3 months. The last application had been made the week before the humans left. Korvan tried to recreate the treatment using the notes, but the formulation was complex. It referenced techniques he did not understand. He attempted several versions, but each one failed. The plants kept dying. Within a month, Telman 4 had to import food at enormous cost. The world that had once exported grain to a dozen systems could no longer feed its own population. Similar disasters unfolded across council space. On the medical station Healing Light, an outbreak of crimson fever overwhelmed the staff. Normally, human doctors would have been called in. Humans had developed the most effective treatment for the disease, a combination of medications that worked across multiple species, but the humans were gone, and they had taken their medical knowledge with them. The crimson fever outbreak killed 800 people before it was finally contained using older, less effective methods. High Chancellor Morpheus 7 analyzed the cascading failures with growing concern. The AI had access to vast databases of information, but even artificial intelligence had limitations. It had never paid close attention to the daily work of human specialists. That work had seemed routine, ordinary, beneath notice. Now that work was gone, and nothing worked properly anymore. The Chancellor called an emergency council session. Every member was required to attend. The mood in the chamber was tense. "We face a crisis," Morpheus 7 stated. "Council space is experiencing system failures at an unprecedented rate. I have analyzed the pattern. Most failures relate directly to the absence of human personnel." Councillor Vextrell stood abruptly. "You cannot be suggesting that we need the humans. That is absurd. We are superior to them in every measurable way." "Are we?" A small councillor from the Trill species spoke up. Her species rarely participated in debates, preferring to listen. "My world depended on a human-designed water distribution system. It failed last week. 50,000 people had no clean water for 3 days. Our own engineers could not repair it." Another councillor added, "The humans maintained our communications network. Since they left, we have experienced 17 major outages. Before, we had perhaps 1 outage per year." Vextral's scales rippled with agitation. "These are temporary problems. We simply need time to adjust, to learn the systems. Time." The Chirac senior councillor clicked its mandibles sharply. "My species is facing food shortages because the agricultural domes on our colony worlds are failing. How much time do we have before our people starve?" The chamber erupted into arguments. Species blamed each other for the situation. Old rivalries surfaced. The unity that had seemed so strong 3 months ago was fracturing. Morpheus 7 observed it all and understood. The humans had not just provided technical skills. They had provided mediation. When disputes arose between council members, human diplomats had quietly worked to resolve them. They had found compromises, built bridges, maintained peace. Without them, the council was discovering how much its members actually disliked each other. Ambassador Seonwoo Nam had replaced Ambassador Park as humanity's sole representative to council affairs. But his role was not to participate. He was merely an observer, maintaining a small office on the edge of council space. His job was to ensure humanity fulfilled its obligation to complete emergency operations and to inform the Council of Humanity's position. The council sent him a formal request for assistance. They offered generous payment for human experts to return and help stabilize critical systems. Seonwoo's reply was brief. No. They sent another request, this time offering a formal apology for the Outer Rim decision. Seonwoo's reply was briefer. No. They sent a third request. They offered to restore human territory rights. They offered favorable trade agreements. They offered seats on important committees. Seonwoo did not say no this time. He said something worse. These offers are irrelevant. The word stung more than any insult. The council was offering everything they had previously denied, and humanity did not care. On Station Gamma, Commander Zeth continued to struggle with systems that were slowly breaking down. He had studied the documentation that Ji-won Song had left behind, but much of it assumed knowledge he did not possess. The humans had built their systems using principles and techniques that were not taught in standard council education. One day, Zeth discovered something interesting in the files. A section labeled "Why Things Were Done This Way." It was not a technical document. It was an explanation. Ji-won had written it in simple language describing the philosophy behind human engineering. She explained that humans designed systems with multiple redundancies because they assumed things would go wrong. They built in fail-safes because they expected accidents. They created simple manual overrides because they knew automated systems could malfunction. Council species, by contrast, designed systems assuming everything would work perfectly. When something failed, it failed catastrophically because there were no backup plans. Zeth read the document twice. Then he sat in his office for a long time, thinking. The humans had not been showing off their superiority when they built these complex systems. They had been protecting everyone. They had been planning for disasters that council species had never imagined could happen. Because humans came from a harsh world. Because their history was full of failures and recoveries. Because they had learned over thousands of years that survival meant planning for the worst. The council species had grown soft, living in stable environments with few challenges. They had never needed to develop the defensive thinking that humans considered natural. Zeth tried to contact Ji-won one more time. To his surprise, she answered. Her face appeared on his screen, neutral and professional. "Commander Zeth," she said, "I hope you are well. Miss Song, I have read your documentation. I must tell you, it is brilliant. The depth of thought behind these systems is extraordinary." Juwan's expression did not change. "Thank you. I was wondering if you might consider returning. I can offer you an excellent salary. Whatever you want. We desperately need your expertise." "I cannot return, Commander, but why?" "We are willing to pay generously. We recognize now that we undervalued human contributions." Jiwan was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Commander, do you know how many times I submitted proposals to improve station efficiency?" 47. "Do you know how many were approved?" "Do you know why?" Seth said nothing. "Because every time I submitted a proposal, my superior dismissed it without reading it. He told me that humans should focus on maintenance, not innovation. He said that if the improvement was truly valuable, a Velkari would have thought of it first." Jiwan's voice remained calm, but there was something beneath the calm. "I did not leave because of money, Commander. I left because I was tired of being treated as if my thoughts did not matter. As if my species did not matter." The connection ended. Zeth sat staring at the blank screen, understanding fully for the first time what humanity's withdrawal really meant. It was not about resources or territory or trade agreements. It was about dignity, and dignity, once stripped away, could not be bought back with apologies or money. Across Council space, the failures accelerated. Merchant routes collapsed without human logistics coordinators. Defense systems malfunctioned without human tactical support. Research projects stalled without human scientific insights. And in human space, behind their closed borders, humanity thrived. They built new colonies. They advanced their technology. They formed alliances with other species that the Council had ignored or marginalized. They did not gloat. They did not seek revenge. They simply moved forward, as if the Council no longer existed. 6 months after the withdrawal, Councillor Vextral stood before the Council and did something he had never done before. He admitted he was wrong. "We made a mistake," he said, his voice rough. "We underestimated humanity. We failed to recognize their value. We must find a way to bring them back." High Chancellor Morpheus 7's hologram flickered. The AI had finished its analysis. The numbers were devastating. "I do not believe they will come back," the Chancellor said quietly, "and I do not believe we can force them." The Council chamber fell silent. Outside, across thousands of worlds, systems continued to fail. The cascade had begun and no one knew how to stop it. The humans had withdrawn silently. Now, in the silence, the Council was learning the true cost of their choices. 18 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Council was collapsing. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly and inevitably, like a building with a cracked foundation. 3 member species were on the brink of war with each other over resource disputes. Without human mediators, old hatreds had resurfaced. Council fleets patrolled the borders between territories, preventing violence but unable to resolve the underlying conflicts. High Chancellor Morpheus 7 had spent months analyzing every piece of data about humanity's time in the Council. What the AI discovered was shocking. The numbers told a story that no one had seen while humans were present. Humans had filed over 14,000 incident reports identifying problems in Council systems. Less than 800 had been addressed. Humans had proposed nearly 9,000 improvements to infrastructure, medicine, agriculture, and defense. Fewer than 200 had been implemented, and most of those had been quietly credited to other species. Human doctors had treated over 40 million Council citizens. Human engineers had designed or maintained systems on more than 600 worlds and stations. Human diplomats had mediated over 3,000 disputes between Council members, and in all those reports, all those proposals, all those quiet acts of service, the humans had asked for only one thing: to be treated with respect. The Council had failed to provide even that. Morpheus 7 presented these findings to an emergency session. The counselors listened in stunned silence as the AI detailed the scope of human contributions. When the presentation ended, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, Counselor Vextral stood. He looked older now, more tired. The arrogance that had once defined him was gone. "We must request their help," he said. "Formally. We must make them understand how serious the situation is." The motion passed unanimously. For the first time in council history, every member voted the same way. They sent a formal delegation to human space. The delegation carried a document outlining the crisis and requesting immediate assistance. They offered favorable terms, economic incentives, and a formal apology for past wrongs. The response came from President Taeyong Kim, the leader of the United Human Systems. The message was a single word: no. The delegation requested a meeting. President Kim refused. They requested a video conference. President Kim refused. They sent personal messages to every human official they had ever worked with. All went unanswered. In desperation, they turned to Captain Minji Kang. She had been the one to walk out of the council chamber that day. Perhaps she would listen. To their surprise, she agreed to meet. But she set conditions. The meeting would be on neutral ground, a small station at the border between council and human space. Only 3 council representatives would be allowed. No recording devices. No weapons. Counselor Vextral led the delegation. With him came High Chancellor Morpheus 7's mobile platform, and a Chirax counselor named Thren, who had always been sympathetic to humanity. They arrived at the station to find Captain Kang waiting in a bare conference room. She wore her military uniform. Her expression was neutral. She did not offer them seats, so they remained standing. Captain Kang, Vextral began. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. You have 1 hour, Kang said. Speak. Vextral had prepared a long speech full of diplomacy and carefully chosen words, but facing Kang's cold stare, he abandoned it. We were wrong, he said simply. We treated your people badly. We dismissed your contributions. We took you for granted. And now we are suffering for it. We need your help. You need our help, Kang repeated, her tone flat. Yes. Our systems are failing. Our people are suffering. We cannot fix what is broken without human expertise. Kang reached down and picked up a data tablet from the table. She activated it and began reading. June 14, 2721. Human engineer Seung-ho reported critical flaws in the Meridian Station defense grid. Report dismissed without review. September 3, 2723. Human Dr. Yoonji warned of potential crimson fever outbreak on Healing Light Station. Warning ignored. March 27, 2728. Human agricultural specialist Junho proposed water conservation system for Telman 4. Proposal rejected. Credited 6 months later to a Velkari researcher who presented a nearly identical design. She continued reading. Date after date, incident after incident. The council delegates listened, unable to speak. I have 14,000 more entries, Kang said. Would you like me to continue? Vextral's scales had lost their color. No, Captain, we understand. We made mistakes. Mistakes? Kang set down the tablet. A mistake is an accident. A single error in judgment. What you did was systematic. For 127 years, you treated humanity as a servant species. You took our work and gave nothing in return except contempt. We are offering reparations now. Morpheus 7 interjected. Significant economic compensation. Territory rights. Political power within the council. Kang looked at the AI's hologram. You still do not understand? Then explain it to us, Thren said quietly. The Chirax's mandibles moved in a gesture of humility. Please help us understand. Kang was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but no less firm. When we came to the council, we believed we had found something precious. A community of species working together. We were willing to contribute, to serve, to help build that community. Not for payment or power, but because we believed it was right. She walked to the window, looking out at the stars. But you never saw us as part of the community. You saw us as tools. Useful, perhaps, but not equal. Not worthy of basic respect. We see that now, Vextral said. We were blind, but our eyes are open. Come back, help us. We will treat you differently. Kang turned back to face them. Will you? Or will you treat us well only as long as you need us? What happens in 50 years when things are stable again? Will you remember this lesson, or will you return to your old ways? None of the delegates had an answer. Here is the truth, Kang continued. We do not trust you. Trust is earned over time through consistent action. You had 127 years to earn our trust, and you squandered every opportunity. Now you want us to return because you are suffering. But we suffered too for more than a century. You did not care then. Why should we care now? Because we are dying, Vextral said, and for the first time his voice broke. Our people are dying. Yes, it is our fault. Yes, we deserve this. But the ordinary citizens of Council Space, the ones who had no say in how you were treated, they are the ones paying the price now. Kang's expression did not change. 57 human doctors were expelled from Council Space over the past century for refusing to prioritize Council species over others in emergency situations. They believed all lives were equal. The Council disagreed. How many people died because those doctors were not there? Did you care about them? Silence. 4 human-led research projects that could have prevented diseases were cancelled for lack of funding. Council members said the research was not a priority. Those diseases have killed millions since then. Did you care about them? Vextral could not speak. Thren's mandibles trembled. Even Morpheus 7's hologram flickered as if the AI was processing something difficult. You want mercy from us, Kang said. You want us to save you because it is the right thing to do. But we offered you mercy for 127 years. Every time you insulted us, we returned with patience. Every time you dismissed us, we returned with better proposals. Every time you took our work without credit, we continued to work. She picked up the data tablet again. We gave you 127 years of mercy. You gave us none. So here is my answer, Counselor Vextral. No. Captain, no. Her voice was final. Humanity will not return to the Council. We will not send our people to fix your systems. We will not share our knowledge. We will not solve your problems. Kang walked to the door, then paused. However, we are not cruel. We will accept refugees. Any individual from Council Space who wishes to flee violence or famine may request asylum in human space. We will not turn away the innocent, but we will not save the Council, she continued. The Council must save itself. You must learn what we learned long ago, that survival requires humility, that progress requires respecting all who contribute, that strength comes not from domination but from cooperation. She opened the door. Your hour is up. Goodbye, Counselor. The 3 delegates left the station in silence. On the journey back to Council Space, Vexitral stared out at the stars and wondered how his species had become so blind. Behind the closed borders of human space, President Taeyoung Kim received Captain Kang's report. He read it carefully, then sent a message to all human worlds. The Council has learned what they lost. That will have to be enough. The reckoning was complete. Now came the long years of consequences. 5 years after the withdrawal, Ambassador Daeho Park sat in a small garden on the human colony world of Eden Prime. He was 78 years old now, officially retired from diplomatic service. His hair had gone completely white, and his hands sometimes shook, but his mind remained sharp. He spent his days tending to the garden and teaching young diplomats at the local academy. Sometimes he thought about the Council, about the chamber he had walked out of so long ago. Mostly he did not. The galaxy had changed in 5 years. The Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. 3 species had withdrawn entirely, forming their own alliance. Others remained, but with reduced commitment. The grand vision of galactic unity had crumbled, revealing the fragile foundation it had always rested upon. Council Space had stabilized somewhat. They had learned slowly and painfully to maintain their own systems. They had developed new techniques, though these were often crude versions of what humans had provided. They had resolved some of their conflicts, though others still simmered beneath the surface. But they had survived. Barely, but they had survived. Human space, by contrast, had flourished. The resources that had once been spent supporting Council infrastructure were now invested in human colonies. New worlds were settled. New technologies were developed. The population grew. More importantly, humanity had formed a different kind of alliance. The Galactic Federation of Independent Systems, they called it. It included species that the Council had marginalized or ignored. The Trill, with their philosophical wisdom. The Karathi, with their artistic brilliance. The Psalm, with their mathematical genius. Species that the Council had considered inferior. Species that humanity treated as equals. Dr. Hyan Lee now led the Federation's Central Research Institute. Her team had finally completed the cure for spiral sickness. They offered it freely to all species, including Council members. No payment required. No conditions attached. Some Council species accepted the cure with gratitude. Others refused it, too proud to accept help from those they had once dismissed. Pride, Hyun thought sadly, was a slow poison. Admiral Jinwoo Choi commanded the Federation Defense Fleet. It was smaller than the Council military but more advanced. Human tactical thinking, combined with Psalm strategic analysis and Karathi adaptive creativity, had produced something remarkable. Pirates who had once terrorized Council space gave the Federation wide berth. There were rumors, never confirmed, that several pirate fleets had simply vanished after attacking Federation ships. The rumors were enough. Governor Yuna Han had transformed New Busan into a thriving trade hub. The colony that had once been on the edge of Council space was now central to the Federation's economic network. Yuna had learned from the Council's mistakes. In her administration, all species were treated fairly. All voices were heard. On this particular morning, Ambassador Park received an unexpected message. It came through official channels marked with high-level encryption. He almost deleted it without reading. He was retired after all, but curiosity made him open it. The message was from someone named Talvin, a Velkari counselor. Park did not recognize the name. Talvin must be from the new generation, those who had risen to power after the old guard had fallen. The message was simple and direct. Honored Ambassador Park, my name is Talvin. I am a junior counselor in what remains of the Galactic Council. I am writing to you not as a representative of the Council, but as an individual who wishes to understand. I was a child when your people withdrew. I grew up in the years of crisis that followed. I saw the suffering caused by our species' arrogance. I studied the history, read the reports, learned what my elders had done to your people. I am writing to say that I am sorry. I know this apology comes far too late and from someone too young to bear responsibility. But I feel it must be said I am not asking for anything. I am not requesting that you return to the Council. I am not seeking assistance or alliance. I simply wanted you to know that some of us understand what was lost. Some of us have learned from the mistakes of our predecessors. Perhaps in time my generation can build something better. Not the old Council, but something new. Something worthy of the ideals you once believed in. I do not expect a response. I only hope this message finds you well and that you know your service was not in vain. You taught us a lesson we desperately needed to learn, even if the cost was terrible. With respect, Talvin. Park read the message 3 times. Then he sat in his garden for a long while, thinking. Finally, he composed a reply. He spent an hour on it, choosing each word carefully. Counselor Talvin, thank you for your message. Your apology is accepted. Though as you say, you bear no personal guilt for your elders' actions. You ask if humanity might someday engage with the Council again. I cannot answer for my government as I am retired, but I can share my personal thoughts. Trust once broken is not easily repaired. The wounds inflicted upon humanity were deep. They will not heal quickly. Perhaps they will never fully heal. However, I believe in the possibility of change. I believe that new generations can choose different paths than their predecessors. Whether the Council can become something worthy of trust again, I do not know. That is for your generation to prove through actions, not words. If you truly wish to build something better, here is my advice. Treat all species with dignity. Listen to voices that are quiet. Value contributions from those who do not boast. Build systems that serve all, not just the powerful. Do these things not because they will persuade humanity to return, but because they are right. If you build something truly just, truly fair, then perhaps one day there can be a conversation. Not about returning to what was, but about creating something new. I am an old man now, and I will likely not live to see such a day. But I hope that you and others like you will make it possible for future generations. With hope for your success, Deho Park. He sent the message and returned to his garden. Whether anything would come of it, he did not know. Perhaps nothing would. Perhaps everything would continue as it was, with humanity and the Council forever separate. But the possibility existed now. A door, not opened but unlocked. 3 weeks later, President Taeyong Kim called a meeting of the Federation leadership. He shared Talvin's message and Park's response. The room debated for hours. Some argued for complete isolation. The Council had proven untrustworthy. Why risk engagement again? Others argued for cautious exploration. Talvin represented a new generation. Perhaps they could be different. In the end, they decided on a middle path. Humanity would not rejoin the Council, but they would open limited diplomatic channels. Young diplomats from both sides could meet, talk, learn from each other. No promises. No guarantees. Just a small opening, a a carefully controlled experiment in communication. Captain Minji Kang, now promoted to admiral, was chosen to oversee the program. She accepted with reluctance. She had been in that council chamber 5 years ago. She remembered the contempt, the dismissal, the arrogance, but she also remembered Ambassador Park's teachings. Humanity had withdrawn not out of hatred but out of self-respect. They had removed themselves from a harmful situation. That did not mean they must be forever hostile to those who had harmed them. "We will try this," she told her staff, "but we will be cautious. The council must prove itself through actions over years, perhaps decades. Words are easy. Change is hard." On the council side, Talvin received the news with quiet relief. He knew the path ahead would be long and difficult. He knew that most of his fellow counselors did not share his views. He knew that rebuilding trust would take more than his lifetime, but it was a start. Ambassador Park, working in his garden on Eden Prime, received a final message. It was from President Kim thanking him for his response to Talvin. "Your wisdom opened a door," Kim wrote. "Where it leads, we do not yet know. But because of you, the possibility exists." Park smiled. He looked up at the sky where stars shone in the daylight. Somewhere among those stars, young diplomats were preparing to meet. To talk, to try, it was not reconciliation. It was not forgiveness. It was simply the smallest step toward something that might, in decades or centuries, become understanding. That evening, Park taught his class of young diplomats. They were eager, idealistic, full of hopes for the future. He told them about the council, about the withdrawal, about the long silence that followed. "Remember," he said to them, "that strength is not about dominating others. It is about knowing your own worth. We withdrew not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to walk away from those who did not value us." A student raised her hand. "But Ambassador, if the council has learned their lesson, if they truly change, should we not help them?" Park considered the question. "Perhaps if they prove themselves. But remember this, we do not owe them our help. They must earn it, and earning trust is the work of generations." He paused, then added, "However, if they do the work, if they truly change, then refusing to acknowledge that change would make us no better than they were. Justice is not about eternal punishment. It is about appropriate consequences and the possibility of redemption." The class ended. The students left. Park remained in the classroom, looking out at the colony beyond. Children played in the streets. Humans and Trill and Karathian psalmed together, laughing. This was what the council could have been. What it might still become if enough people like Talvin worked to make it so, but whether it did or not, humanity would be fine. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that their worth did not depend on others recognizing it. They were valuable because of what they did, who they were, how they treated others. The council had taken 127 years to learn what they had lost. That was answer enough. Ambassador Daeho Park walked home through the peaceful streets of Eden Prime. Content.